Ready to elevate your credit understanding and score? With insider tips and a plan, you can take action to improving your score, which can save thousands in unnecessary finance charges. Let's tackle today's topic with your coach, Credit Christy.
Hey friends, it's Christy, your credit coach. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Since it's a new month and a new year, let's start off 2025 strong by setting some credit resolutions to really crush it this year with your financial goals. You know, it wasn't too long ago that I was just drowning in debt. I had 4 maxed out credit cards, a car payment I could barely keep up with. And friends, I was working 3 jobs. Yeah, 3 jobs. I had an 8-hour-a-day Monday through Thursday at a company as an administrative assistant. I was working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday selling jewelry at the mall. And I was transcribing at night for a company. Long story, it doesn't even matter. But let me just say, I was working my tail off and barely able to cover my debt. So I had no fun in my life at all. And you want to really start to spiral out of control, just sit there and make debt payments and have no money left over for fun in your life. And that just squashes, like, what's the point? Why even get out of bed every day, right? So that's where I was at. And I knew I had to take drastic action in order to get out of this. And this is why I was working 3 jobs, is because I needed to pay off my credit cards. I had to get one credit card out of my life because it was like an insanely high interest rate. The monthly payment was quite high. Even just making that minimum monthly payment, nothing was going towards the actual pay down of that debt. That is the worst feeling. So if that's something that you're going through right now, I absolutely understand it at my core. I get it. And friends, life is not about servicing debt. We should be planning and purposeful and intentional with our money. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now to really just make 2025 a more impactful year with our goals, more powerful and empowered with our finances. So let's dive into that. Let's start off with talking about why making a credit resolution matters. Let's talk about some steps to achieving those credit goals and then staying accountable. So here we are. We're going to dive in face first. Why would a credit resolution matter? If you are anything like me, you have made resolutions in the past and found yourself coming up a little bit short. And when I say short, I mean failing in the first week or two. So January 10th, at the time of this recording, has just passed. And January 10th is known as Quitter's Day. This is when most people say, I am done. I'm throwing in the towel. I can't do this. What was I thinking? I'm just going to default back to the status quo and bop through life like I always have. And unfortunately, that's where the majority of people are right now. I read that somewhere like 8 or 9% of resolutions are actually met, meaning that the majority, like 91, 92% of people, don't ever get to see their resolution come to fruition. And why is that? Sometimes it's because the resolution is big and heavy. Sometimes it's because we make 5, 6, 7, 8 of them at one time and proclaim that we're going to just change our life and change the world. And it's, well, just too much change. And that makes it hard to incorporate into our daily routines. But why would a credit resolution matter? Words have power, and sometimes the meaning that we've put into words previously can get in our way of those words working for us. So in the past, I've made resolutions and I've failed. And so I hear the word resolution, and all it is just kicking the can down the road for me to be a failure, show up as a failure. So I hate making resolutions because I feel like I'm just setting myself up to publicly proclaim that I cannot follow through on what I say I'm going to. Who wants that in their life? So how about instead of calling it a resolution, what if we call it a revelation? What if we take just a few moments and really think about how our credit can impact other financial opportunities? So if you have a credit score that is suffering right now, maybe you're in the 400s, 500s, or the lower 600s, and you just don't want to be there anymore. First of all, let me start off by saying you are not your credit score. Your credit score does not define you. It does not say who you are in this world as a person. it does signify to people who make decisions about if they should loan you money and at what cost based on your previous behaviors. So it's time to have a revelation when it comes to your credit, and let's wake up the possibility of not being that default status of what we've been in the past. So what would your life look like if you had a perfect credit score and you were not drowning in debt? See, this is what we have to do. We have to visualize what is possible in order to see ourselves in that situation. And when you can see yourself living that life, now your brain says, oh, look, it's happening. And we can work backwards and get moving in those steps forward to make that vision of yours a reality. So where do you see yourself? What does this look like right now? Imagine yourself with your credit cards with a zero balance. Imagine getting all sorts of offers of credit cards with points and reward systems because your credit score is so incredibly sexy high. And what if now you have a car payment that you can totally afford because it's at a decent interest rate because you have a 780 credit score? Or better yet, you've paid your car off and you're putting that money towards things that you're really hoping for in the future, like a retirement account, maybe saving for your first home or your next home. Maybe you're fully funding your kids' college account. Or you're gonna finally have that European vacation and it's gonna be paid for in cash. Really see yourself in those situations. See yourself with a paid off car that you enjoy driving. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Can you see yourself? Can you imagine that as your reality? Okay, now that we're there, let's write out some specific, measurable goals and a time in which you'd like to accomplish this. Just like when we put on weight, you can't just drop it overnight. It's a process that takes a little bit of time. So when is your goal? Is your goal that December 31st, 2025, you want to have 2 credit cards paid off in full? That you've got hundreds or thousands of dollars paid off and no longer accruing interest that's going against your bigger goals? So write it down. But don't just say 2 credit cards paid off. Say, I want my fill in the blank and my fill in the blank credit cards that currently have a such and such balance to be paid down to 0. Now you've got a dollar amount and a time frame in which to work with. So let's just use an example, and let's say you have $4,000 between those 2 cards and you want them gone. You're going to take those $4,000, look at what month it is, and divide your time frame, your goal, by how many months between right now and when that's going to happen. So let's say we're 11 months away from your goal being accomplished. I'll take $4,000, I'll divide it by 11 months, and I've got to plug $364 a month at that. But it's actually going to be higher than that because remember, you are servicing that debt. Well, what the heck does that mean? Servicing debt means you're making payments towards outstanding debt. And when that is the case, you are paying interest in most cases. So let's just go ahead and bounce that up to $400 a month instead of $363 and some change. So where are you going to come up with $400 a month? And start listing out what's possible. Are there some things that you can cut from? Is there a side hustle you can do? Can you help out some family or friends and get paid for it? Can you take on extra hours at work? Can you cover somebody else's shift? Can you work a little extra for a bonus or some overtime? So in this case, $400 a month is definitely not impossible, right? You've got this, but you've got to write out the ideas and suggestions and ways that you can make that happen. A lot of times when I'm teaching classes on finances, I'll ask the people in the room, who in this room spells budget with a 4-letter word? And you'd laugh if you saw how many hands go up in the air. And it's usually because when people are creating a budget, it's because they're forced to, right? It's because they have to. It's because they have hit rock bottom, just like where I was. And if I didn't find a way to figure it out, which for me, it was working 3 jobs and having no fun in my life, not spending any money until those credit cards were paid off, yet utilizing a budget just felt yucky. It felt like punishment. But let's say you have all the money that you need in this world and you could even possibly want. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm just flowing in so much money right now. I should really assign where that money goes to so it could work powerfully for me. So I want to invest in this and I want to purchase that and I want to give away to here and support this. And you start seeing things from a very different perspective when you have money versus when you don't have money. So if that were your case, you're just plush with cash and you just want to do a good job of being a good steward of your money and assigning where it goes to, well, that feels very different following a budget than when you are squeezed to where there's nothing left, doesn't it? So imagine yourself following a budget that way. Because sometimes, we put meaning to words. And so a budget might feel really disgusting to you because you affiliate that with having to pinch every penny. And if that's where you're at right now, just tell yourself, this is not forever. This is just for right now. And you can do hard things. So now you've got your time frame. Now you've got a measurable amount of money that you need to have each month to accomplish your goal. Now you've listed out a few ways on how you're going to achieve that. And maybe it's a mixture of all of those different ways, right? And so what is your ultimate goal? Is it to pay them off and keep them at zero? Is it also to improve your credit score, to free up a little bit of cash flow? Write all of those positive outcomes down so that way you can really see what this hard work is about. And then that's how you measure your success. Your credit score is higher, your debt is getting eliminated, and you've got some better cash flow as you pay off and eliminate those required monthly payments. Take a moment because, man, that feels great. Okay, so how do we achieve these credit goals? Well, first start off with reviewing your credit report. You can go to annualcreditreport.com and get your free credit report. Now, if you want to see your credit scores, you might have to pay for them here. My recommendation would actually be to go directly to all three credit reporting bureaus. So Equifax.com, TransUnion.com, and Experian.com. And you can see your credit scores there. Keep in mind that there are literally dozens of credit scoring models. And so you're going to see different credit scores, and your credit score can change on the daily. It's also going to be different when you look at your credit score versus when, say, a mortgage loan officer looks at your credit score and profile. But it should be swimming around that same area as what you see there. So check out your credit report and see if there's anything that looks inaccurate. If there's an address that you've never lived at and it's listed, go ahead and dispute and ask that to be removed. If there's something that's showing up that was a late payment and you truly did not have a late payment, go ahead and dispute that. My recommendation is, though, if it's truly accurate and you're just not really proud of it, please don't go and dispute your information because you're just wasting everybody's time, including yours. You don't want to have dispute information listed if you know it's going to result in, oh yeah, that's accurate information. So you may not love that you had that late payment, but if it's reporting late and you dispute it, you're just wasting everybody's time. And the last time I had read, I think it's somewhere around 8 million dispute requests come in every single month. So my recommendation is just dispute things that are actually an error or you truly believe are being reported inaccurately. Look at your utilization rates. What does this mean? Your debt utilization is a ratio of how much is borrowed as far as a percentage against how much is allotted. So your balance versus your limit. So what does that look like? Let's say you have $1,000 on your credit card and you have a $2,000 limit. Then you've got a 50% debt ratio. So that's your utilization rate. Your goal, my friends, is to be at 30% or less. Next, set up that budget. Make it realistic. So my recommendation is to go 2 months back on your bank statements and also 2 months back on your credit card statements and really check out where your money is being spent. I think this is going to be eye-opening and it might feel, well, at least it did for me, like a punch in the face. I was assigning, a couple $100 a month towards groceries. Well, who was I kidding? when I really saw how much money I was spending on food, I was like, no wonder I'm falling so short. It's because I wasn't realistic on what I was truly spending. I think my big thing that I'm so off about right now is how much money I spend on gifts for others. We tend to sometimes underestimate how much we spend on birthdays, weddings, celebrations, supporting a friend in need, those kinds of things. So really write down every single thing. If you've got pets, you've got vet bills. If you've got kids, well, you've got all the bills, don't you? So list out all of your debt repayment, your savings, your tithing, your living expenses, all of it, and take a look and see where you might be able to shave it back just a little bit. I had to stop shopping in a certain grocery store because they are insane what they are charging. I started shopping at Aldi and oh my gosh, it's like, I swear, somewhere between a third and half of what I was spending at the other grocery store. So sometimes where you spend money is just as important as to how you spend your money. And there are all sorts of budgeting apps out there. You could even just create a very simple spreadsheet. But get started on seeing it in writing so you can start seeing where you need to cut in order to get out of your debt. And then next, prioritize your credit card payments. I would recommend focusing on eliminating the high interest debt first. If you do have a very small balance, maybe a credit card with just a couple $100s, get that gone so you could have that $25 or $50 a month minimum payment going towards your next highest debt. So if you've got a tiny one, eliminate that. If all the rest of them are in the several thousands of dollars category, then look at what each credit card has as an interest rate and get rid of that, because that's the one that if you're just feeding that minimum payment, you're not going to get anywhere on that debt elimination. You could also look at getting a 0% credit balance transfer. If you do this, make sure you're not now utilizing one more credit card to carry debt on. If you're going to move your credit card or credit cards on a 0%, make sure those other ones that you've moved that balance on get locked away someplace. I'm going to encourage you not to close that account. Keep it open for your utilization factor, but do not use those credit cards again. Try to keep those at zero balance and then just work very, very hard to eliminate that debt on that zero transferred credit card that you just got. And make sure you're making all of your minimum payments on time. Do not have a late payment. Payment history makes up 35% of your overall credit score algorithm, so do not be late. You have control over that. Pay it on time. And then finally, stay accountable. So how are you going to track your progress? Find something that works for you. You could create a spreadsheet. You can utilize one of those budgeting apps. And I would also encourage you to have a friend that's going to hold you accountable and encourage you at the same time. This accountability partner is really going to help propel you in this debt elimination, because having to say it out loud to somebody what you're doing, or worse, not doing, to help yourself is usually a kick in the butt to get into action. So ask a friend to be an accountability partner or kind of like your coach, encourage you, help keep you in line, and help you keep focused on your why. What is your why? You want to get out of debt, free up some of that money so you've got some cash flow, so you can go and have a little bit of fun in your life. And so you can see those credit scores increasing so that you're not being stuck with higher interest rates because you have a lower credit score. And finally, make sure that you celebrate some big milestones. When you pay those 2 credit cards off and that $4,000 at the end of this year, how are you going to celebrate? I'm going to encourage you, go share a bottle of Prosecco with some friends and have a great toast to accomplishing a really big goal. Post about it on social media and share with other people, hey, I did this and I know you can too. I promise you, you are not alone when it comes to feeling like you're drowning in consumer debt. So make sure you do something special to celebrate your accomplishments. All right, so what is most important to you? Let's just recap that for just a moment. Go back to your notes. What's the most important thing for your credit revelation of getting out of debt? What's most important to you? That's going to be your why and your driver when you're making these sacrifices this year. And what can you do to motivate yourself, encourage yourself, and challenge yourself to keep on track for this really big goal? So what are you going to do when you're debt-free? How are you going to celebrate? What new goal are you going to set for yourself? I've learned, being a goal chaser, that as soon as I accomplish a goal, I've got to have another one behind it. See, what I did earlier in my life was I kept increasing that same goal. In other words, I kept pushing back that finish line. And I mean, I'm not a runner. I've ran a couple 5Ks before. That finish line feels like it's a million miles away anyway. And when you finally drag your tired, limp, sore body to that finish line, like it's very, very rewarding, but at the same time, it felt so far away. It was really hard to get there. Could you imagine if at the end of that 5K, somebody picked up and moved that finish line another couple miles out? Like, how painful would that be? And how disappointing would that be? So I'm going to encourage you, when you set a goal, leave it as that goal. If you would like to change that goal, maybe consider setting up a new goal behind it. So if you want to pay off your 2 credit cards and have $3,000 in savings, awesome. But maybe not just change it from $3,000 in savings to $5,000. Like, leave it at $3,000. And then once you get there, celebrate the snot out of your success. And then create a new milestone. Okay, great. I have $3,000 in savings. Now I want another 2. So your new goal is $5,000 total, right? You're not moving that finish line. You're running through that finish line. You're celebrating your success, and then you're setting up another goal behind it. And it could be a completely different and unrelated goal. But friends, just don't keep moving that finish line. It's almost like punishing yourself, even though you're making great success. There's something very psychological behind all that. I'm not a science geek. Sometimes I wish I were, but I'm telling you, learn from what I've done. That is not a recommended way of being. Don't move that finish line. Set a new goal behind it. And I want to say thank you so much for being with me on this journey, for caring about yourself and your financial success so much that you're leaning in and learning so that you can master your finances, be in charge of your money, and accomplish those big time goals that I know you're creating and accomplishing. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time, my friends, stay well.
Subscribe now and share with a friend to stay in the loop for new credit content and insider tips to maximize your credit knowledge. And follow Credit Christie on Instagram.